How you doing, good people? This day been animal. Alright, so when you think of football video games, especially now, the first thing that pops into most gamers' minds is Madden. Or the NCAA series that was popular, from EA Sports. However, long before Madden, long before the 2K games the 2K football games, long before Electronic Arts basically bullied their competition out of business by getting NFL exclusivity, there were a number of other publishers making football games. None of them, however, saw the success of one Japanese publisher. But to get to that, we have to go a year ahead to 1988. 1988, the good folks at Tecmo released this really interesting arcade football game. It's 4 players. It has a huge screen. Basically, as long as you were behind the line of scrimmage, you could toss the ball around all willy-nilly. There were no actual set plays. This game was freestyle football. You could do whatever you wanted to do in it. And it was reasonably successful in the US. But when Tecmo decided to port it to the NES, the Famicom, that's when they hit their stride with this title. And one of the important things that they did was acquire a license from the NFL Players Association. First time that had been done. The game I'm speaking of, if you haven't guessed already, is Tecmo Bowl. Now, Tecmo Bowl was incredibly awesome because it maintained the soul of its arcade counterpart, because it didn't feature 11-man teams on the field at once. I believe it was like 8 on 8 or something like that. But it's a fast-paced game. It's an incredibly balanced game, ironically. It features, I want to say, about 12 teams. And while none of those teams have their actual logos and colors, well, they do have their colors. They feature all of the players from rosters around that time period. Some of the rosters are a little inaccurate because, if I remember correctly, Walter Payton wasn't playing for the Bears in 1988. He had retired by that point. But the teams were Indianapolis, Miami, Cleveland, Denver, Seattle, Los Angeles, Washington, San Francisco, Dallas, New York, Chicago, and Minnesota. Each team had 4 plays. In most cases, it was 2 run plays or 2 pass plays. Now, there were a few teams like Miami, Denver, I believe, and San Francisco who had 3 pass plays and 1 run play because of the quarterbacks on those teams being so prolific. Each team had, they had certain players that were skilled in certain ways. For example, Chicago had Walter Payton and Mike Singletary on offense and defense, respectively. San Francisco had Joe Montana at quarterback, Ronnie Lott at safety. Los Angeles, they featured Bo Jackson. Howie Long was on the defensive line. The New York team featured Lawrence Taylor at linebacker, and he was the fastest defensive player in the game. This game had a lot of depth for the NES title. So much so that Tecmo Bowl stands out as one of the high watermarks of video football. one of the great examples of what a sports game could do. And not only did it draw in fans of football, but it also it pulled me in. And at that point, I didn't really care about football, but I enjoyed Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Bowl is a fun game. It still holds up today, even with the release of Tecmo Bowl Throwback on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network. It still holds up. The original game does, as a classic. It plays just as fast as it did before. It doesn't feel old. Doesn't feel dated. It's just a fun experience. Um, and I heartily recommend anybody who's a fan of football, anybody who's a fan of just good arcade style gaming, should check out a copy of Tecmo Bowl. Y'all should try to get it. It's not a hard game to find. Tecmo Bowl was widely successful. You should pick it up. This has been the 8-Bit Animal. Y'all have a good day.